本日はダイバーシティエクイティ&インクルージョンフェア2022にご参加いただきありがとうございます。近頃ダイバーシティという言葉が一人歩きしている、そんな風に感じることはありませんか？今回エプソンにおけるダイバーシティ推進の意味やその目的への理解度向上、そしてダイバーシティ推進について改めて考えるきっかけの一つとしてもらうため、ダイバーシティエクイティ&インクルージョンフェア2022と題してさまざまなコンテンツを準備しております。そして本日はここ広岡事業所 C キューブから午前と午後の2回に分けて講演を実施いたします。本日司会を務めさせていただきます FM 松本の小口春奈と申します。よろしくお願いいたします。ありがとうございます。さて早速ですが、ここからは特別ゲストをお招きした講演に移ってまいります。ご登壇いただくのはエプソンが2022年3月にスポンサーシップ契約を結んだ全米女子プロゴルフ協会 US-LPGA のコミッショナーであるモリー・マク・サマンさんです。3人のお子さんを育てながら組織のトップとして世界で挑戦する女性プロ選手のキャリア支援に取り組まれております。それではモリーさん、よろしくお願いします。
Thank you. Konnichiwa. It's such a pleasure to be here in the home of Seiko Epson Kabushiki Gayasha, or as we come to know you, our friends, our colleagues, our partner, Epson. Here in this room, I want to recognize President Ogawa, Mr. Kubota, Mr. Seki, and Mr. Kawana. Thank you all so much for having us. This is my first time visiting Japan, and I must say, I'm not only struck by your country's beauty and vibrance, but your citizens, your people are some of the most welcoming that I have ever met. It's truly an honor to be with you here today. As you know, we're here in Japan because our extraordinary athletes are competing at the Seta Golf Course in Shiga this week. That's very big news here, especially with all of the year-end awards like the Player of the Year and the Rookie of the Year and the race to the CME Globe and the World #1 are all awards that are on the line right now, with 3 tournaments left on the LPGA Tour in 2022. But being in Asia is not unusual for us. In fact, it's a regular occurrence on the LPGA Tour. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Korea at our BMW Ladies Championship, where we had a New Zealander, Lydia Ko, win in the Republic of Korea, South Korea, which was big news in both countries. But it's a pretty standard occurrence for us. Not only is it a standard occurrence because the amazing Lydia Ko has won 18 times, and she's only 26 years old, but every year we have athletes from all over the world competing in between 10 and 13 different countries. Prior to being the LPGA commissioner, I was the athletic director at Princeton University. So I stayed very much abreast to almost all of what was happening in sports, in amateur sports, in collegiate sports, and in professional sports. Top universities like Stanford University and UCLA in the Pac-12, and Princeton and Yale and Harvard in the Ivy League, every year they bring their teams around the world to play in front of alumni and in front of international business leaders. Leagues like the NBA and sports like American football are spending millions of dollars in an attempt to penetrate international markets. I tell you this because while other leagues and other sports are doing everything in their power to internationalize, the LPGA has been a global brand for more than 30 years. The LPGA was visionary in knowing and understanding that sports are truly unifying, and sports help us all speak a common language. It's never been more important for all of us to come together around common goals. Just look at this year, for example. We had a player from Ireland win in Florida, a player from Denmark win in our event in Thailand, and a player from Thailand win in our first tournament in California. All of that happened before the 1st of April. We also had 2 players from Japan, 2 of my very favorite players, Nasa Hatoka and Ayaka Furu, win events in Los Angeles and in Scotland. We've had 2 South Africans win this past summer, on 2 separate continents. We had a Canadian win a major championship in France. And 2 of our last 3 LPGA Tour winners at events in America have been from England. This is important because of the impact that it has worldwide. I can tell you from experience that when you get off the plane in Incheon, Korea, for example, the person driving your hotel shuttle knows who won the previous week's LPGA Tour event, no matter where it was played. And I was just there 2 weeks ago. And when you engage with an LPGA Tour event, whether it's entertaining clients on site or you have brand activation at an event thousands of miles from home, the impact is truly global. Our events are broadcast in over 160 countries. Many of you already know that because you have lived it all year. We have just concluded our first full year of partnership with Epson as the official Road to the LPGA sponsor. I believe being the title sponsor of our qualifying tour is one of the very best sponsorships we offer, and we are so grateful for your support. I had the good fortune of being in Daytona at the LPGA headquarters just a couple weeks ago for the Epson Tour Championship, the finale of a remarkable season. I have to say, seeing the faces of those young women who have worked so hard, who have dreamt their whole lives of competing at the highest level since they were very young girls, seeing the emotion spill out as they fulfilled those dreams and earned their 2023 LPGA Tour card through the Epson Tour, that is something I will never forget. Just to give you an example, the Gael Truet Rookie of the Year this season is a 17-year-old from China named Xiaowen Yin, who hasn't stopped smiling since she won back-to-back tournaments in Michigan and in Indiana this summer. But by finishing in the top 10 on the money list, Xiaowen became the youngest player in history to earn her LPGA Tour card through the Epson Tour. As remarkable of a feat as that is, it was what she said afterwards that stuck with me. She said, quote, "The Epson Tour gave me a lot of confidence. I learned a lot and I got a lot of experience. I played with girls from all over the world, which is the same as on the LPGA Tour." She did play with girls from all over the world, which is one of the main points that I want to emphasize today. Just as with the LPGA Tour, on the Epson Tour this year, players from 45 countries competed, making the Epson Tour the most internationally diverse sporting league in the world. For comparison, the Tour de France had riders and teams representing 27 different countries. And on the Epson Tour, we had representation from 47 different countries. In just a few weeks' time, the Men's World Cup begins. Soccer is one of my favorite sports. It was one of my favorite sports growing up. That event, which is the most viewed sporting competition in the world outside of the Olympic Games, will have 32 nations represented. The Epson Tour has 45. But the numbers get even better. Of the 21 official Epson Tour events played in 2022, we had 19 different winners from 12 different countries. Each one of those winners represents global exposure for the Epson brand. For example, when Linnea Strom wins the IOA championship in Beaumont, California, it's not just a story in California. In fact, it's a bigger story in Stockholm, Sweden, where Strom has a big and loyal following. When Dottie Ardina wins the Copper Rack Classic, yes, it's big news in Hurricane, Utah, where the event is played, but it's much bigger news, enormous news, in fact, actually in the Philippines, where Ardina is revered and has a huge following. Just look down the list of this year's Epson Tour graduates. You see players from Sweden and China, the United States, Finland, Korea, Norway, and Indonesia. Look a little further down the money list at players who will be going to Q Series in December, hoping to earn their LPGA Tour card through the Q Series. And you see players from Thailand, Australia, the Philippines, Germany, Spain, Puerto Rico, and Paraguay. Those players are not just representing themselves, their performance is advancing the Seiko Epson brand. Yes, they played in events from Lake City, Florida to Pendleton, Oregon, and many points in between, all in the United States. But the reach extended to Taipei and Bangkok and San Juan and Paris and Hong Kong and Manila and Frankfurt and Mexico City, Copenhagen, Asuncion, Bogota, Prague. They played everywhere. They represent everywhere. No matter what nation or what language, when news of our athletes reaches their homeland, one word remains the same: Epson. While news about our athletes flies around the globe and the airways, nothing beats the up-close experience you get from engaging with these women on site at the golf course. For those of you who've been able to attend an LPGA Tour or an Epson Tour event this year, you understand the value of engagement. You have talked to the players and you've seen them in action, not from the stands or from a skybox far away, but up close. You have talked to them about their games and maybe about yours. I'm just entering my second year in my role as commissioner of the LPGA, but in that amount of time, I can tell you that in every Pro-Am I have attended, the customers, the sponsors, and the partners who were out on the golf course with our athletes walked away as fans of women's golf and the LPGA. Our athletes always exceed expectations, always. And one thing that I very much value is that they are always appreciative. I want to read you a quote from one of our American players, a 26-year-old from Florida named Samantha Wagner. This is what she said: "Every season is great, but this season has been amazing. I've also been extremely fortunate to play with some people from Seiko Epson in a lot of Pro-Ams, so it's been great to meet the people behind the partnership. The company is just so invested in our tour and bettering our lives and our games out here. We are so appreciative of their help. I don't know if they have any idea what it means to us to have them here as our sponsor, but it means everything, really." You might not know Samantha Wagner, but I promise you that the people who have played with her, whether they are Epson team members or Epson customers, the people who have gotten to know her and spent time with her at one of the Epson Tour events, they are fans for life. They also understand the importance of Ebsen's support of these women who work so hard to live their dreams and inspire those around them to do the same. Looking back over the years, try to imagine the people who played with former Ebsen Tour players, how they feel today. When at an Ebsen Tour Pro-Am party, they spent time with a teenager named Inbee Park, now the youngest player in history to earn membership into the LPGA Hall of Fame. Think about the stories of those people who tell their family and friends that they had time with Nelly Korda. Try to imagine the customers who had lunch with this former #1 and major champion when she was just 18 years old, qualifying through the LPGA Tour through the Ebsen Tour. The moment you bring a customer to an LPGA Tour or an Ebsen Tour event, you are not entertaining that person for one day. You are building a relationship for years, possibly decades, and you are building a fan for life. You are giving that customer someone to cheer for, which is something we should all have in life. That is what this partnership means for your customers, for your brand, and for you. Now I'd like to talk to you for a moment about what you are building for the players, and in a bigger sense, what you are doing for the culture of women in sports and women in workplaces around the world. I mentioned earlier that soccer was one of my sports. The other one I played at Princeton University in America was ice hockey. But those were just a few of the sports I played as a girl growing up. I have absolutely loved playing sports. It has always been my outlet and my happy place. But sports are also what made me the person I am and has allowed me to be a successful leader. There is no doubt I learned my most important life lessons through sports. I learned teamwork and hard work and discipline and grit. But most importantly, as a young girl, I gained confidence in my own ability and learned to find a way to work with others to win. Sports allowed me to feel the rush of being a leader and being counted on by my team. I approach my job at the LPGA the same way. I approach striving for a championship with my teammates. Sports established a winning mindset within me, and it's something I will always be grateful for. An Ernst & Young study recently showed that 95% of C-level female executives played sports growing up. To me, that says it all. But sports also have the power to build communities and to inspire others. Where else in society do people cheer passionately for others? Where else do people associate their own identity with a group of strangers? Where else do people care so much about winning? And most importantly, where else do we get to watch people push themselves to greatness in something whose outcome is unpredictable and where failure is inevitable? Ebsen recognizes the power of sports to inspire others and to form affinities that matter. Through this sponsorship of the LPGA and Ebsen Tour, Ebsen is telling the world that they believe in not just women's golf or women's sports, but that they believe in women and their talent and their ability to inspire others to reach their goals. And they believe in equity. They believe that women are capable and strong and talented, and that they believe that women matter in all parts of society. The LPGA, like Ebsen, has been a leader in diversity and inclusion since 1950, when 13 courageous women, our founders, signed the original charter to create a professional golf league for women, something almost no one thought would survive. These founders knew what they were doing was not only important for golf, but for society. Here we are 72 years later, playing in more places, for more money, with more nations and peoples represented than in any time in our history. And the LPGA has not just broken gender boundaries over the years. In 1964, a charming 37-year-old black woman named Althea Gibson joined the LPGA. She was already famous as a Grand Slam tennis champion, the first Black woman ever to win the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open tennis championships. But that didn't stop her from experiencing the prejudices of her day. When Althea became the first top-flight female two-sport athlete, there were still places where people only saw the color of her skin. But those early players on the LPGA Tour would not tolerate discrimination in any form. By sticking together, by doing what was right, what was just, and what was moral, our pioneers set a standard for inclusion, long before anyone in society knew what that word meant. You, through the commitments made to the LPGA Tour, through your engagement and activations, and to the Epson Tour, are helping young, talented girls develop their talent and live their dreams, so they can inspire the next generation to do the same. $50 doesn't sound like much until you don't have it. The simple act of lowering entry fees by $50 per tournament has in some cases been the difference between a player staying out on tour or being forced to go home and give up her dreams. Increasing the purses to at least $200,000 has made the Epson Tour economically viable for many international players who might otherwise have not been able to come to America to play. Imagine a young girl in Belgium or Argentina or Peru or Slovenia. How can that girl live in America and survive while trying to polish her craft and become a true professional? Epson has made that possible. The Ambassador Program, a little financial boost to help jumpstart the careers of new LPGA Tour players, means more than most of you could know. But with your commitment, Seiko Epson is doing much more than helping out a group of young golfers. You are sending a message throughout your organization to your customers around the world, to your partners, and anyone who knows your brand. You are saying, Epson empowers women and believes in the importance of strong, talented women being able to live their dreams, even when the playing field has not always been level. To the great men in this room, I hope that my story and the story of our founders and the story of what has happened this year on the LPGA and the Epson Tour inspires you to continue to lift up the women in your organization. No one achieves greatness on their own. And to the women in the audience, take up space in the world. Understand and value your unique gifts and talents. Be confident in your skills. Be willing to fail. Support and mentor other women, and keep pushing for the win. I have been so impressed by how Epson lifts those who dream big, those who work hard, and those who persevere. I've just learned that there's an old Japanese proverb that says, and I apologize for my poor pronunciation, Shoshin wasura bakarazu, which translates to, we should never ever forget our original intention. Our goal at the LPGA is to be the leading women's golf organization and to empower and inspire and transform the lives of girls and women through the game of golf. Those obligations, those responsibilities, this future is only possible because of partners like you. Do'omo. Thank you very much for being our partner.
モリーさん、ありがとうございました。モリーさんには事前に質問が寄せられております。それでは一つ目の質問です。初心者がゴルフを上達させるコツを教えてください。
Well, golf is a very, very hard sport. I think that's the most important thing to know, that it's not going to be easy when you first start. But I think you have to just go very slowly and make sure that you know, first of all, that you're going to hit a lot of bad shots. I hit a lot of bad shots, and even the very best players in the world hit bad shots. And so there's a great book that I read a few years ago that's called Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. So people who think that they will be perfect at golf will have a very bad life as a golfer. So the first thing is know that it's very hard. And then the next thing is to work on your short game first. Start with putting and chipping and just very slow. People think that the golf swing is complicated, but the simpler that you make it, the slower that you make it, the easier the game is. I think that's kind of the same in life. I always say that it's really important to make complicated things simple, and golf is a perfect example of that. So I think golf is a very fun game when you realize that you won't be perfect, it will be hard, but you will get better by practicing and being consistent. Our golfers on the LPGA and the Epson Tour, the reason they're so good is because they are very disciplined, they are very technical with their swing, and it's very, very consistent. I think all of us who play golf can hit a few good shots. But these women, they hit a few bad ones every once in a while, but generally they're very, very consistent. And that's what allows them to be the very best in the world. So don't try to be perfect. Go slow, work on your short game, and have fun.
次に USLPGA のコミッショナーになって最初の1年で何カ国を訪れましたか？
Yes, I mean, I have been in many countries. So the season starts out in Florida, and then we move quickly to our first Asian swing. And last year we played in Singapore and in Thailand. We had an event scheduled in China, but due to COVID, we were not able to play there. So I went to Singapore. I did not go to Thailand this year, but I will be going next year. And then we come and we play in the US on the LPGA Tour for a few months. And in the summer, we go to Europe. So I went to France, and then we had 2 tournaments in 2 different cities in Scotland. And then I came home, and we have a great tournament in Canada, which was a fabulous event. And then we come back and we play in the US for a month or so more. And then we come and we do our second swing in Asia. Again, our event was canceled in China, and our event was canceled in Taiwan. But we played in Korea 2 weeks ago, and then this week we are playing here in Japan. So I think I've been, and then we are also partners with the Ladies European Tour, and I went to one of their events in Switzerland. So I think I've been to 9 different countries this year, and it's been a fabulous experience. And I think, again, it just speaks to the diversity of the LPGA and the Epson Tour, and the fact that we are truly a global tour and a global game.
日本に来たら一度は食べてみたい料理は何ですか？
Well, I love Japanese food. I am a working mother. I have 3 children and a husband who has also a very demanding job. So we don't cook very much at our house. We try to, but we're not very good cooks, and we don't cook very often. But we order food out, and our very favorite thing to order, and it always has been, is Japanese food. So I've been very, very much looking forward to being here and just tasting, the traditional food that we have in the U.S. But I've also learned of a new dish called takoyaki that I've heard is delicious. I love octopus, so that's something that I'm looking forward to trying while I'm here. But I even tried to get Ipe to stop and have takeout udon last night on the way home back here from the airport, but we didn't get to. But I'm excited to try new foods here.
USLPGA のコミッショナーとしての最初の年にあなたが学んだ最大のことは何ですか？
Well, I've learned a lot, and it's been a very challenging year and a very challenging job. But I think the thing that is very clear, there's a number of things. I'll tell you 2 things. One is that you cannot succeed in life without great people and great partners. The LPGA and the Epson Tour would never be successful if we didn't have amazing partners like all of you. But also we have a great partnership with our players and with our tournament operators and with our broadcast partners. It's a very complex organization, and if everybody isn't working together and if there isn't really clear communication, then things fall apart. So we often say we're about people, which is our staff, players and partners and professionals. We also have a number of women who are LPGA teaching professionals, and they teach the game of golf to young girls and women around the world. So those 4 Ps are really, really important. And without all of them, I've realized I've always known that teamwork was very, very important. But when you have a very complex organization, it is critical that everybody works together and that everybody wakes up every day thinking about how to make the organization better. It's not about their own success, but it's about the success of the organization. And so that's the thing that has really stuck out with me. And the other thing that I've learned is that while we go to all of many, many different countries and we meet people from many different cultures, that people are very good and generally are very more similar than different. We can learn from each other, but I've been very inspired by how warm and friendly and welcoming all the people that we've met around the world have been, and how much they love sports and love rooting for other people while watching sports.
ゴルフ以外で最も刺激を受けるアスリートは誰ですか？
Well, I wasn't sure if this question meant which one of our golfers inspires me outside the golf course, or if there's a different athlete that I like and that I watch. So I'll answer the first part of it. Is we have our golfers are not only remarkable athletes, but they also are very, very committed to using their platform to change the world. People know who they are. They're famous in either their countries or in other countries. And so they take that responsibility very seriously. We have a young woman on our tour named Maria Fassi, who is very young. She's just a few years out of college, and she's already started her own foundation to help children with disabilities and to inspire people through her platform. She raises money, she gives her time, and she's just one of many, many players who does that. Another woman on our tour, Lydia Ko, who's #1 on our tour right now. She's from New Zealand. She's Korean by descent. She's from New Zealand. But when you see her at a tournament, she's almost the very best player on the LPGA this year. And every time she sees a young girl, she stops and talks to the young girl. She signs something for them. She gives them some words of inspiration. She never acts like she's too good for those around her. She's very accessible, and she's always very positive. Golf is a very hard game, and you can have a lot of failures, but she always just has a very calm demeanor. So those are just 2 examples of women on our tour that really inspire me because they're working so hard to be good at what they do at a very, very hard game and a very hard sport and a very hard tour, but they always take the time to inspire others and to help others. So they inspire me.
エプソンでキャリアをスタートさせる若い女性にあなたからできる最高のアドバイスは何ですか？
Yeah, I mean, I think for women, for men, for women, for everyone, it's really important, particularly for young women, to be confident in your own skills and to be confident in the value that you bring to the organization. So with that confidence, I think that allows you to always put the organization first. As an athlete, I always think about the team. And I grew up playing sports, as I talked about before, and had that mindset that when I woke up in the morning, my job was to make the team better and to get the team to win. And so I think for young women, having the confidence to know that your skills are valued, your talent is important, and you can do anything that you put your mind to, but never forget that that should be working towards making the company and the organization better. And I think that will allow you to individually succeed. So be confident, put the team first, and good things will come for you individually.
あなたのメンターが与えてくれた教えで今も残っているものを一つ挙げてください。
Yeah, I've had jobs where I felt like they were very hard and decisions were very big, and if I made the wrong decision, I could fail, or I could do something that wouldn't help the organization, or it'd be the wrong decision, or someone would question something that I've done. I was running a very large business in the US, and it was a new business. It was a startup company. We were opening up a very large sports complex, and it was really challenging and very hard. We had no employees, we had no customers yet. We were just starting from the beginning, and I really felt like every decision was so critical. And if I didn't make the right decision, the whole organization would fail. And it was one of my first really big jobs. And my boss said to me, and I was very nervous, I wasn't sleeping, and I wasn't able to focus on my kids as much as I should have been, and I had a nervous stomach all the time. And he just said, listen, you're smart, you have great experience, we're smart, we have great experience. Make the best decision that you can make in the moment, and let the chips fall where they may. We're smart enough that if it's the wrong decision, we can go back and fix it. But by not making that decision and by waiting and being paralyzed by it, you're not helping the company. So I really listen to that advice. And sometimes you get very nervous about making a decision, but you realize that you just have to use your experience, the best knowledge that you have, and make the best decision that you can. And then if it's not the right decision, be willing to admit that and go back and fix it.
あなたにとってダイバーシティとは何ですか？
I think diversity is so important, and we see that on the LPGA Tour. By having women on the Epson Tour from 45 different countries and women on the LPGA Tour from over 30 countries, we're better because we have women with different perspectives. We have staff from all over the world. And by listening, it's not just about your background or your race or your gender. It's also about diversity of knowledge and diversity of opinion and perspective. I think that diversity is not just to check a box, it's to make the organization better. And so by having different opinions and different perspectives, you get the right answer. Part of what I believe in leadership and management is to get the very, very best people on your team who have different perspectives than my own, and then be willing to really listen to them. If you only listen to people that have the same opinions that you have or come from the same background that you have, the company or the organization will never get better and will never challenge itself. So I try very hard to bring people in from different backgrounds and to listen to their opinions, particularly when they're different from mine. That's not always easy, but I think that's what diversity means to me, is using the power of people, using the power of experience, using the power of difference to make an organization or a team better. And that's not, again, just background or ethnicity or race or gender. It's also about diversity of mindset.
ダイバーシティ・エクイティ&インクルージョンに取り組み始めたばかりの会社にとって参考になる他のパートナーの取り組みを教えてください。
I think it's fantastic that so many companies are being much more intentional with trying to open up opportunities from people from different backgrounds and to not always do the same things that they've always done. Sometimes we get into habits of looking at the same places for employees, going to the same colleges, going to the same towns, going to the same companies to pick employees. And when you do that, you just continue to get the same type of employees. So I think one thing is the recruitment of new staff is very, very important. And the companies that we've seen that have been very successful have changed the way that they recruit employees. They look at their job postings to make sure that they feel inclusive, to make sure that they are not just looking for the same type of people within that job description, that they're going to different colleges or different companies and looking for people who have different skills. I think that's very, very important. I think the other thing is to really figure out if the environment where the employees are working are inclusive, and that people feel like they can be themselves while they're at work. They can not just have to fit into the same stereotype that everybody who works at the company fits into, that they can be themselves. Because I think, again, the company should be promoting culture and society and helping support people. And if people can't be themselves, then I think the company won't be as successful. So I always think that a happy environment, a happy work culture creates more productivity. And so I think that recruitment and the environment that you all work within is really, really important to be successful. And then the last thing is, to not just have diversity, equity, inclusion be its separate department, and that only people who work in diversity, equity, and inclusion think about that. I think it has to be ingrained in every part of the organization. It can't be, though, these 5 people work on diversity, equity, and inclusion, but the rest of the company doesn't think about it. I think it really has to be ingrained into every part of the organization in order for it to be successful. The other thing I would say is if you have people that are working on diversity, equity, and inclusion, that they really have voice and access to the top leaders in the company, and that they really have an ability to tell them what's happening in the company. So those are things that we've seen to be really helpful and important. Most of our partners at the LPGA and the Epson Tour are like Epson, that they're very intentional about using their platform to empower women and to empower people from different backgrounds. And that's one of the things that I love about our partners, is that they're really committed to this idea and the importance in society of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
これまでのエプソンとのスポンサーシップで印象的だったことは何ですか？
Well, we have absolutely loved the partnership with Epson. From the minute that I met the team in Florida last January, the America team, I just was so impressed with how committed they were. They had sort of you have 3 main goals. 1, to have international and global exposure, and so you've been very intentional and specific about that. 2, to be able to entertain clients and to allow you to have a great experience with new partners that you bring into our tournaments and to make a fan for life. And 3, to be very intentional with your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And all of those things have happened very quickly. We have loved our partnership. We've loved working with the team. Just this event here today is a perfect example of how organized and how committed to excellence the team at Epson is. The other thing that I've noticed is that employees stay at Epson for a very long time. That means that the culture is very, very good and that people enjoy working here. So just in 1 year, you've already helped us increase the purses on our tournaments to make our women be able to be able to live out on the tour. You've reduced the entry fees and inspired other partners to help us reduce the entry fees for our players. And you've created an ambassador program that has given the women who leave the Epson Tour and go to the LPGA that little leg up that they need to succeed. So in just 1 short year, it's only been 10 months, I guess, we've already seen huge changes to the Epson Tour, and so we are truly, truly grateful for your partnership.
これまで挑戦する機会がなかったベテラン女性の意識改革について、やってみようと思う何かメッセージが欲しいです。
Sure. I mean, at the LPGA, we have a performance model that we call Be Great. So in English, the G, the R, the E, the A, and the T stand for a different behavior or value. So the G is one of my very favorites, which I'll talk about, which is being growth-minded, which means that you wake up every day trying to get better. It's not about what you accomplished before or what you're doing. This current moment is what you're doing is trying to get better. So that word being growth-minded to me is really important for people who've been at a company for a long time, because there's always new challenges. There's always ways of getting better. And I think sometimes when people stay at companies for a long time, they get into a rut and they forget that their job is to get better every day and to push the company to be better and to come up with new ideas. I worked for the same company for 20 years before being the athletic director at Princeton, and I thought I would stay for my whole career, but the opportunity that I got at Princeton was really different and really pushed me to that next level. But for my 20 years at Chelsea Piers, where I worked, I got to try new things all the time. And every time my bosses asked me for a new job, to do a new job, I grabbed it as quickly as I could, even if I didn't have experience doing it, because I felt like that's how I was going to help the company get better and how I was going to grow. So I think that mindset of it's not just that you're working at the same company. Every day you have an opportunity to contribute to the company and make it better, and you shouldn't just accept the ways that we've always done things. It's just being innovative and being aggressive and knowing that you have the talent to think of new ways to improve. The other words, just so you know, in our Be Great model are being respectful, being engaged, and being accountable for your actions and for your work, and being team-oriented. Those are the words that we fall back on all the time at the LPGA. We say, work hard and be great, and we will be a successful organization.
最後の質問です。あの時こうしておけばよかったと後悔していることはありますか？またそれをどう乗り越えましたか？
Yes, I mean, I think when I first started becoming a leader, I was given a lot of responsibility early on in my career, and I felt like I had to be the expert in absolutely everything within the business, and I had to be able to tell everybody how to do their jobs. And it didn't make me a very good leader. I didn't inspire other people to be great themselves. I tried to micromanage everything that they were doing. And what I realized is the only way you can be successful is if you pass the ball to your teammates and you let the people who work for you do their jobs. As a leader, the most important thing, I think, is to hire great people and then let them do their jobs. You can't, as the leader, be great at absolutely everything. You have to find great people that can do the job. And I learned that as being a leader early on, that it really had nothing to do with my talents. It had everything to do with me finding other people that had great talents and then letting them be successful in what they do. So again, when I first started working and I was given a very big job without a lot of leadership experience, that was the biggest mistake I learned. And now I try very hard to hire great people like our friend Cheryl, who's here with me today, who's fantastic and has come all the way over from the US with me to help out, and she's so detail-oriented and committed to what she does, and I realized that's the most important thing, but I didn't always know that.
質疑応答は以上です。That's all. Thank you, Mollie.
Thank you very much.
モリーさん、貴重なお話をありがとうございました。全米女子プロゴルフ協会コミッショナーモリー・マク・サマーンさんでした。本日はありがとうございました。皆様改めて拍手をお願いいたします。Thank you very much, Mollie.